welcome to another edition of Bourbon and Bullets. And let's get off to a quick start today. Remember this asshole?
I think McKenna should resign if she means what she says about climate change. And that came up only because I was very, very impressed by Monsieur Hulot in France, who just on air said, my government isn't serious about this target. We're not doing it. I quit. Well, why the hell isn't the Minister of the Environment? She sounds like she's a Minister of the Economy, for Christ's sake. Like, what's going on here?
So, yeah, that would be Saint Suzuki, saint in the eyes of the media and the adoring left. Let me tell you, the reality is the guy's anything but a saint. I've had the misfortune of having to listen to him talk a couple of times, and oh boy, he's about as abrasive as he appears in that news conference. He's 100% a prick. I mean, if you listen to this channel, I don't like to use ad hominems, but he's a prick. And of course, he's criticizing Catherine McKenna for sort of, soft peddling the carbon tax, saying that, oh, well, I mean, if she's really serious, why limit it to $50? Make it 500, make it 5,000, make it $5,000 a ton, which is what the UN is calling for. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to worry because he's still going to get his $1 million a year from the CBC, and he's still got one. He can still fly. He's still going to fly around to one of his 6 homes in his fancy SUV or his big diesel powered tour bus that he was using when he about 10 years ago when he was campaigning against the Harper government. Yeah, he's not going to change any of his habits, and he doesn't have to worry about any money. But the hell with the rest of us. The rest of us can go to hell. I mean, this guy who has 6 homes and flies first class around the world and demands VIP treatment all the world, and he's worse. Like his behavior is worse than the most high demands of the worst type of celebrity or rock star. Any of those people that make these ridiculous demands. He is among the top in that regard. So his idea of a perfect economy is Cuba, because they have a low carbon footprint. Yeah, because they don't produce anything. Because under a communist government, they don't have anything. So yeah, there you go. If you want to be scrambling for food and eating rats, that's the idea of a perfect economy. Well, why he lives in one of his 6 mansions. Yeah, there you go. So, but let's see what Climate Barbie has to say about the Liberals' latest carbon tax plan. Let's see about how important it is that they destroy the economy in the name of their climate change religion.
Dire warning, and the date with disaster keeps moving closer. The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change now predicts the world has a dozen years to keep global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. After that, the rise towards 2 degrees Celsius or even 3 degrees Celsius spells a world of bad news for Earthlings everywhere. This finding comes at a time when Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and likely New Brunswick are creating a coalition of the carbon tax unwilling. To discuss both of these issues, let's bring in the Federal Environment Minister. Catherine McKenna joins us from, it looks like snowy Calgary there, Minister. Well, I won't even tell you what it's like.
Snowy Calgary.
But anyway, that tipping point, if this report's to be believed, is getting real. 12 years, but we're on track for like a 3-degree warm-up. In your view, as minister in a country which really isn't showing much of an emissions reduction so far, is keeping it to 1.5 degrees Celsius possible?
Look, this report is a sobering report. We often talk about future generations. This report makes it very clear. 1, we are the first generation to feel the impacts of climate change. 2, we're the last generation who can act. And when you look at a child that's 10 years old today, in 30 years, if we don't take serious action, they're going to see, the catastrophic impacts of climate change, from droughts to forest fires to floods, and also a $50 trillion hit on the economy. So, we need to act, and that's why we have a plan.
Yeah, that's why we have a plan to combat this complete fantasy that I'm spinning here. And of course, this idiot, the CTV, I mean, he just repeats the UN climate catastrophe doomsaying predictions. Remember in 2005, maybe not all of you do, but remember in 2005 when Al Gore came out with Inconvenient Truth, and right now there wasn't supposed to be any ice at the Arctic. Children weren't going to experience snow anymore in the lower 48 United States. That was going to be the end. There is no evidence whatsoever that there is increased storm activity or hurricane activity or cyclone activity either in the Pacific or the Atlantic. In fact, hurricane activity is actually at one of its lowest periods in over 100 years of recorded data. There is no evidence that we are experiencing the warmest temperatures ever. The warmest year globally is still 1936, and the 1930s, the mid 1930s, the late 1930s, are still record temperatures. And there was high temperatures right through to about 1952, and then there was actually some cooling. So what we're seeing actually, and they always are careful to cherry pick the data, so that they only show a rise from 1952 when from 1952 when it peaked, and then it declined in the 60s, and then they show a rise from the 60s through the 70s, and actually even in the early 70s, temperatures were still quite low, and there were a lot of predictions that we were entering potentially another ice age. Um, back then, even though scientists were a little more conservative in their doomsday scenarios, when they were warning President Nixon about a potential ice age, they're saying, 100 years out. Here they're saying, the UN's they realize that to get people to act, to get them to fall into line with their globalist government control of the world, they need something a lot more immediate. So it's 10 years, but of course it always moves. I mean, I gave you the Al Gore example, but it's always moving. It's always, oh, we gotta act now. We gotta act, 5 years or it's gonna be too late. 10 years is gonna be too late. We've only got 12 years to save the planet. That's it. Okay. So anyway, she's got this plan, and as David Suzuki was pointing out, the annoying David Suzuki, but even he, the liberals aren't left wing and catastrophic enough for him, because he wants a total erasure of the economy. Because Trudeau's already admitted that this plan is not going to do anything. We're going to tax everything, and we're gonna drive capital out of this country. But it's not going to do anything to the climate. Not that taxing people would ever do anything to the climate. But even by his own hysteria, he admits it won't do anything to the climate. But then what's this? Here we have Catherine McKenna saying that New Brunswick isn't going to be taxed. They're not going to be subject to the carbon tax. No, but if it's so critical, if it's a doomsday scenario, as she said that, oh my God, catastrophic effects. Our children are going to pay for it. $50 trillion. Where she get pulled $50 trillion number out of her ass, but whatever. She just said it on the national newscast. $50 trillion hit to the economy. But wait a second. Despite all that, we're going to let New Brunswick off the hook. Gee, I wonder why. Oh, yeah, because we did some polling. We found out that after the last provincial election, where the Conservatives, buoyed by an even more libertarian right-leaning party in a minority government, is supporting them, that, New Brunswick isn't really buying the whole carbon tax the economy to death, the world is ending type scenario. So, yeah, we probably need those seats in New Brunswick because, we're running into some polling difficulties. And Dominic LeBlanc, he guaranteed that he could bring us 10 seats in New Brunswick, and he did. So, and he's saying, folks, we're not really digging this whole carbon tax thing. So all of a sudden, it's catastrophic, but yeah, it's not really that important. We'll let New Brunswick slide. They're small, but we're gonna go after Ontario in a big way, because they elected Doug Ford, so we can't have that. We're definitely gonna punish them. Can't have the electorates thinking they get away with not voting Liberal. That's for sure. Because after all, we're trying to save the planet by taxing you to death, because it'll work. Except in New Brunswick. Don't worry about New Brunswick. It doesn't matter. It won't play that much of a factor. But it's really critical that we tax you to death, or otherwise this planet is doomed. We only Trudeau and Catherine Climate Barbie McKenna can save the planet. Yeah, okay. I know I lay on the sarcasm a little thick sometimes, but I mean, can you blame me? How ridiculous is this? This is an absurdity in the freaking national media. This idiot on CTV, he takes this. And by the way, the fact that New Brunswick is being let off the carbon tax, not reported on any of the major news networks. All right, that's enough for today. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks as always for watching, listening to Bourbon and Bullets, and until next time.